Yeah, 2 years. So I have two kids. I'm married with two daughters. My daughters weren't able to go to school, and so they can't go to school, but I could. I have a studio, so I could go to my studio. I had 2 art shows. I did all kinds of projects. I maybe had 3 art shows. So I wasn't able to see the shows, but I was able to work and continue to I was very lucky that I could continue just making art and doing projects, and at the same time it was very really hard. And I think we all have this feeling of we're changed by those years, so you recover and you learn how to speak to people again, you learn how to travel again. I had jet lag for the first time just a past months ago. You learn these things back, but we're all it's a changed world, I think, forever. Yeah. So it's like talking about, I'm looking at a double-sided landscape now because it's the beautiful mountains and the lake, but there's another landscape underneath. So it's like the world of fish and the world of the underwater landscape. And that it's also, I think of we can't see this other landscape, but we know it's there. So it's this feeling of the unknown. So I did a painting in the show of the two people, and they're shining the flashlight and they've discovered an owl in the sky. But when you see the painting, you maybe wonder is it a symbol, or is it really there, or is it in their imagination? And I think of that's the other landscape. It's our landscape of imagination and the unknown. I didn't grow up fishing. I grew up in Canada where lots of people fish and it's really good fishing. I had a friend who was a guide, but I never fished. I didn't understand it, so I only started fishing maybe 8 years ago, but maybe even less. Just because I was curious. And my wife grew up fishing. She's from the Midwest, and so she sort of taught me when we would go as a family. We would go and fish, camping and fishing. So it was really, she showed me how to fish, and then I wanted to learn how to do really difficult fishing, so learning how to fly fish. And so that was something just because I like learning. So it was just oh, here's a new thing to learn. Yeah, that's what I like to do, playing in nature. At skiing, it's the same as fishing. It takes you to beautiful places. And I think it's yes, skiing powder, it's a physical experience and it's a challenge or all these things, but really all it is a reason. It's fun to ski powder because all it means is it's more beautiful. And also, if you're skiing powder, it means you're someplace very special at a very special time in a beautiful place. It can't be not beautiful. So you set up these things, and that's same as if you're catching trout. Trout can't live, they can only live in beautiful places. So the water has to be the right temperature, cold, and the places where cold, clean water exists, it means that the entire drainage has to be clean. It's sort of like skiing, or all these things are sort of connected, like running or cycling, and it's finding yourself in space, having a relationship to spaces. Yeah, yeah, often. On a trip to Spain, I was on a surf trip, but I packed all my fly fishing stuff, and or sometimes I'll just bring a tenkara rod. If it's probably won't fish. So there's levels. So it's just rod and reel and some flies, or full waders, or just tenkara, but I often travel with fishing stuff, yeah. Fishing is always fun. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's not catching, it's fishing. And it's I sort of am drawn because I'm drawn to things where it seems almost impossible. Because think of someone who doesn't really know anything about fishing at all, and there's so much to learn with fly fishing. But then I remember there was a day I was tying fly. I taught myself to tie flies, and was tying flies every night and learning. And then it was like my birthday like 3 years ago, and I went fishing, and I caught my first like it was a wild, like, so it was close to our house, like an hour from our house, and I caught like a native trout on my own fly. So like, even though I'd only been fishing for a few years, like it's like I had this experience that was so rewarding. Like it truly, I was like, this is like the best birthday ever. Like, and it was just this tiny fish. I mean, it was like, you know, this tiny like native rainbow, and yeah, it was just totally like special, you know. So like you get that from, like, I don't need to catch 100 fish, you know. Like but to have that experience is like, wow, like super special. Just usually like I mean, I've done like trips, like gone to places to fish, but usually it's like I'm there anyway. Like we'll be like driving, like we'll be on a family camping trip, and it'll be like, oh, let's choose places near rivers or creeks, and then, or I'll be with friends. Like I've done like rafting camping trips with friends, and I bring a rod. And I've done like on ski trips in the spring, so fishing in Colorado, so going skiing, and then on like after skiing, going to fish in the evening. Like everyone who camps, runs, skis should also just have a rod, you know, like just because it's like on a terrible day, you can still fish. It's sort of like like people talk about skateboarding is like, oh, like surfers when there was no waves would skateboard, which I sort of don't even really believe that's true, but it's like there is something to that, like, you know. Like nothing. That's what's so nice. Like it's like when you're fishing, it's just it's just repetition, you know. It's more like meditation than it is like a sport, you know. You sort of disappear. Like learning is really nice when it's like you're just like basically casting, you're like, I'm casting. Not a great cast, but you get another chance. So you're like, I'll do another one. So you have in your mind, you're sort of getting your cast right. But then you're also looking at the water, and you're sort of watching to see if a fish is gonna like take your fly. So you start to become connected to like the small details on the river and small things happening. But you're also, there's also something you have total control of, which is your casting. So you're creating this interface where there's this thing that's totally out of your control, but then there's this thing that's in your control. So it's like this, like, it's this balance that feels, you enter this, it's very meditative, because it's not just like tennis, where you're like, it's all on you, you know? It's like there's all these other things happening that you have to be open to. So it's like control and lack of control, observation, knowledge, instinct, and then you might catch a fish, which is like incredible, like when those things happen, you know? Things I've done over the years, it's like sort of exploring, like using graphics to explore this, like our like own understanding. Like we are part of nature. We're just like a creature that like grew out of the earth, and you know, but like we also have this distance, you know, that's like sort of our own invention. And so it's like this, for me, it's like, how can we occupy these places? Like if nature is on one side and we are here, like how close can we get to it, or what is the connection? So like in the image, it's like there's these fish that are people-like, and the person that's sort of fish-like, everything is sort of abstracted and sort of melted. And then the pattern, it's like a person sort of turning into a fish, or a fish turning into a person. So it's sort of like this sliding scale, like between like these two states of nature. Because that's, to me, that's like why I like graphics. Like graphics, like it's sort of like graphics are used to like explain things that are difficult to express with words, but it's also like used to explain things that no one is trying to express with words. Like there's no, it's like, so I take things that are like sort of poetic, and I say that because they like sort of lack purpose. You know, they just are, but I explain them. So it's like it's not purposeful. Like, I don't want anyone to be like, oh, that's a graphic that's about like our connection to nature. It's more just like a feeling. And it's sort of, I guess that's sort of like playful, but then there's always something like sort of real in there. Because at the same time, you could say like, this person's like decomposing into a fish. Or you could say this fish is being pressed into the shape of a human. Like, you could view it as like violence, or you could view it as like this sort of heaviness, you know, and I think that like brutality, you know, even though, but it's in this fun sort of image. And I think, and then there's the person like holding the fish, like making friends with the fish, and that's the little icon. And it's sort of the same thing, like the fish is too big, so it doesn't make any sense. Like, it's a trout that's as big as a man, or it's a man that's as size. So it's like it's this idea of our relationship. Like, as much as I don't like this connection to nature or whatever, like I view it as like, it's a cliche, right? So I'm trying to view this cliche from some other angle and give it sort of teeth. So a fish out of water, like if you're like, I'm your friend, right? The fish is dying, you know? So you might be saying like, oh no, I love fish. But the fish is like, just put me back in the water. And I think that's like this, as someone who fishes, you're always struggling with this, like, you want to have the right rod to catch the fish, the right tippet to catch the fish, to not hurt them, and I catch and release, and, you know, but all these things, you're like, you have this relationship with fish that's sort of like complicated, you know? And so it's like, that's what that guy is about. But at the same time, it's just fun. You know, it's just a fun image. But it has this, it's rooted in some like thinking that is very like sincere or something. Oh, I thought it was so cool. Because I knew DAIWA is just like a big brand that makes really high quality fishing stuff. But I've never done anything for fishing. So the reason I like to work with brands is because it's a way of like having new experiences and doing new things. And so I'd never done fishing before, and I like to fish. So I thought, oh, this is unusual and cool. So it was exciting to do it. And then when we started discussion, and it was like over a really long period of time, it took some time to develop, and then I first saw the Pier39 product, and it was so impressive and so creative and fun and beautiful quality. So then I was already committed to doing it, but it was really exciting that then it connected with this new brand, and just the spirit of it was really cool. Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. Yeah. It's sort of the same distance from Tokyo, that where we are now is sort of the same as when we do trips to Yosemite. So Yosemite from from where we live is like just under 3 hours away. So I was really interested in that relationship, you know, because I find that so special. And this is obviously such a beautiful place. Yeah, I thought it was really like just a unique way to do it, and it felt so like appropriate for the ideas behind the collaboration, and for Pier39, and it seemed like a challenge, but like I think like out of like doing things that are challenging, you could have like new experiences, and like some, you know, that's how things happen, you know. All of us here now are the only people doing what we're doing like this now here, you know. And I think that's a great feeling. If we were doing this, what we're doing right now in Tokyo, there would be someone actually doing the same thing, like, oh, they're interviewing that woman about her pottery that she makes, like, you know, in the next building over. And I think that, you know, it's nice to be in a place where there's, you know, nothing like this is happening. You know?